Srimad Bhagavatam first thing in the morning. What a way to really bring in the day. So everything is good on my end overall. I thank you for that, and I'm really happy and grateful to be with all of you here today. So let's dive right straight into the verse, and then we'll leave some time for thoughts and realizations and comments at the end as well. So we're reading from the 10th canto. I'm just pulling it up on my screen here. The 86th chapter, 8th verse. And this chapter is entitled Arjuna Kidnaps Subhadra and Krishna Blesses His Devotees. And I'll just do some invocations and we'll go straight into the verse. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. So we have the 8th verse here, and I'll just read the Sanskrit and then we'll go into the translation and purport. Tam param samyudhyanan antaram pripsararjuna nalebe sam pramachita kamenati baliyasha. Translation. Meditating only on her and waiting for the opportunity to take her away, Arjuna had no peace. His heart trembled with passionate desire. One more time. Meditating only on her, this is meditating on Subhadra, and waiting for the opportunity to take her away, Arjuna had no peace. His heart trembled with passionate desire. Purport. Even while being honored by Lord Balaram, Arjuna was too distracted to appreciate the Lord's gracious hospitality. Arjuna's distraction and Lord Balaram's failure to recognize Arjuna in his disguise were both arrangements of the Supreme Lord to enjoy his transcendental pastimes. I'll read that one more time. Even while being honored by Lord Balaram, Arjuna was too distracted to appreciate the Lord's gracious hospitality. Arjuna's distraction and Lord Balaram's failure to recognize Arjuna in his disguise were both arrangements of the Supreme Lord to enjoy his transcendental pastimes. Om Agyantamidandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuru Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Vancha kalpa trubhyasya kripa sindhu bevacha patitanam pavanevyo vaishnavevyo namo namaha. All right, so we're at this 8th verse of the 86th chapter in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Again, thank you everyone for joining and being here in our morning class in Bhakti Center, tuning in from all around the world. It's so nice to see how many devotees are connected to the Bhakti Center, such a special group and such a special place at the feet of Shri Radha Muralidhar, Shri Gaurachandra, Nrsingadev, and Srila Prabhupada. So I'll just kind of I think we're all pretty familiar with this chapter and this kind of recounting a very special story here of when Arjuna marries Subhadra and how this all kind of turns out. A very ecstatic story and many different lessons that we can kind of take from it. So I'm going to be speaking about some of my realizations, if you will. We'll talk about a little bit of the context. I think everyone's familiar about the context. I'll share kind of like 3 things that stood out to me in this verse and in this section of verses. And I'll also kind of share, in addition to these three lessons, sort of three questions we can be thinking about when we think about practically, um, reflecting on our spiritual life and hopefully our spiritual growth, of things that we can take away, of really meditating on that. And so if you have a notebook, pen, or something around you, you can take some notes and some reflection for your own spiritual growth and continued evolution, and meditate on some of those questions. So for context, Parikshit Maharaj, in the beginning of this chapter, he desires to know more about his grandmother, Subhadra. As his father is Abhimanyu, the great warrior, the son of Arjuna, and his mother is Uttara. And so, as the grandson of Arjuna, he's curious about his lineage. And really, what's interesting in this story, as we go into it, is Arjuna originally had gone on a self-imposed year of exile. So Arjuna was actually guilty. He wasn't really actually guilty, but he broke this vow that he had, where the Pandavas would not spend excess time, or they wouldn't spend time together with Draupadi when they had alone time. So they had this rule that because there were five brothers and there was Draupadi, that they would not spend alone time with her, or they wouldn't interrupt each other when they were spending alone time with each other. Arjuna, to actually, it's this story is told in the Mahabharata, that he is having to save someone who is being robbed on the street. I believe is a Brahmana, and he has to go into this room that had all the weapons chest, and that was the room that Yudhishthira happened to be spending time with Draupadi, and they had this rule that if one of the brothers was spending time with her, because they're all married to her in this kind of very interesting situation, that they would that brother who broke that code would have to go on exile for a year. And Yudhishthir actually didn't really want him to go, Arjuna to go on exile when this whole situation happened, because he said, "Hey, you're doing this for the right reasons, right? There's no offense here. You needed to help someone who was being, attacked, and it's your duty as a Kshatriya to do so, and as a king as well, as a ruler as well, as one of the five Pandavas, to kind of to uphold the principles of Dharma." And so there's no offense, but Arjuna really took it seriously to heart, and he went on an exile for a year. And it's described in the Mahabharata that he goes to many different places all across Bharat, Varsha, which was considerably greater than what we see today from a geographical perspective at that time, 5,000 years plus ago. And he had so many incredible adventures, meeting many different sages, serving them, meeting different princesses, and so many different stories in this year. And as the year is kind of coming to an end, he ends up in near Dwarka on the west coast of Bharat. And from there, he had heard of the glories of Subhadra, Krishna's sister, from different people. And it's explained that even from Krishna's other cousins, who were also students of Dronacharya, the martial arts teacher of the Pandavas, and the Kauravas, actually, he had heard of her glories, her incomparable beauty, her grace, all of those things, her qualities, her wonderful qualities. And he had this desire to want to marry her, get to know her, and also strengthen the alliance between the Yadus and the Pandavas and the Kuru dynasty. Now, at this time, it was interesting because, as I think all of us know, Lord Balaram also had different plans. So Krishna's brother, um, and then you have Krishna. So they had both had different plans for Subhadra. Balaram had two students in mace fighting. Who had many students, but he had two particular ones, Bhima and Duryodhan. And Duryodhan was one of his favorite pupils, if you will. And so he had plans to help to marry her to Duryodhana. And this was much to the dismay of the rest of the Yadus, or for many of them, because they actually didn't feel like Duryodhana was worthy of Subhadra based on who he was. And so we're here at this story where Arjuna comes to Dwarka. Krishna actually comes to meet him outside Dwarka, and they hatch this plan, right? They hatch this plan of how do we, how are you going to get to know Subhadra and create a connection and a relationship um, with her where she can know who you are eventually, and there can be an opportunity to see if there's this mutual love that's there. And Krishna knew already that there was that love there. And so the plan that they decide on is that Arjuna comes in and he says, Arjuna, if you come in, and Krishna's saying this, if you come into Dwarka with the intent of just marrying Subhadra, everyone's going to be on high guard, right? Immediately. And it's not that Subhadra is just someone you can just speak to, right? She's a very special member of the Yadu dynasty and very well protected also because of that. And so he says, I think we should kind of think about this in a bit more of a strategic way, right? And we can see kind of Krishna's how he and it's said really nicely. I really like this in the purport of the second verse and the third verse of this chapter, that Krishna is a prime co-conspirator in this whole situation. And I was thinking about this, that we can also meditate on how are we making Krishna a prime co-conspirator in our life, right? Krishna works with our desires. When we say co-conspirator, he's always looking at what do we want? What is our strong desire, right? Is it to get closer to him? Is it to continue to enjoy the material energy? Is it something in the middle of that? Um, and we can show him what our desire is by our actions, by our intentions, right? By our behavior, by our etiquette. All of those things are by our interactions, by our tapasya, our hard work. All of those things really show Krishna where we are, and he can reciprocate accordingly. And so I wanted to kind of start with that lesson, or that kind of theme, kind of the first theme here, and the first question of that Krishna is always there in all circumstances in our life. He's always there. But how do we want him to be there? Right? Do we want him, when he's a prime co-conspirator, what is he helping us with? Right? What are we letting him know that we need help with? Sometimes we think that, everything is just fate or everything is just free will, but there's really a mix of both going on. We have definitely some free will to show Krishna what our desires are, what our effort is, and then Krishna accordingly, and then also the material energy reciprocates with that in the form of karma, and Krishna reciprocates in the form of his causeless mercy and his support as well. So we can see here that there was this plan that was hatched, and that plan was that Arjuna would come into the city, and he would come dressed as a sannyasi. And because Lord Balaram was very attached to sannyasis and serving them, different sadhus that would come to Dwarka would be passing by, that inevitably he would invite Arjuna, sannyasi, to his palace and serve him prasadam, and to serve him and make sure that he's well taken care of in his stay in Dwarka. It was very much Balaram's pleasure to do this. Lord Balaram, he really very much liked to do this. And Subhadra would naturally, who was staying in Balaram's palace, it's explained, would be part of serving the sannyasi, and then there would be an opportunity to connect them, meaning Arjuna and Subhadra. And so we can see here, this is kind of where we're at. And so Arjuna is in the city. This is during the monsoon season, Chaturmash, and there's a lot of rain, and so it's very hard to travel. right, to actually go around and about because of how heavy the rain is. We can see even in India today, in the monsoon season, it can be quite challenging in different parts of India. So we can kind of imagine what that would be like. And so Arjuna gets invited inevitably during this time. And it's explained in the Mahabharata, there's many different interactions, and I think it's summarized more in these section of verses in the first half of this chapter here. But he comes several times, and Subhadra initially is serving him prasad, and she believes that it's a sannyasi. But upon kind of further introspection, she's seeing that it's not may not be exactly what she thinks it is, right? She's looking at his arms and these muscles are bulging, and she's thinking, well, the Brahmana doesn't have a body like this, right? The way he's walking, it's explained, he has like this lion-like gait, and you can see that he has a royal, kind of pedigree and background. Um, his broad shoulders, and it's also explained in the Mahabharata that you can, she saw, kind of like the scars on his arms and his body from stringing his bow and from years of battle and military experience and training, right, as well. And she's thinking that the sannyasi would not really look like this. This is sort of odd. But as she's connecting with him, as she's serving him more and more, she's starting to think, oh, maybe it's someone else. Maybe it's even Arjuna potentially, because she had heard of many stories of Arjuna. And she had very much in her heart, felt very connected to him, even though she hadn't met him personally at this time. And so now she's meeting, so she's thinking maybe it's someone else. But there can immediately be there was an immediate attraction. And the verse prior to this talks about how she's giving him these glances, these sidelong glances, and really letting him know that I'm very interested, right, in you. And in this section here, we're verse 8 that we're looking at, Arjuna's reciprocating with this, and he's really being, taken away, right, by this connection. And so he's meditating on her and waiting for the opportunity to take her away. So it's explained that Arjuna, when he's seeing these sidelong glances as she's serving him prasad and all of that, he can see that she's reciprocating with his desire and to marry her. And when he's seeing that, he's so excited, he's so enthusiastic and happy that he can hardly eat. He loses his appetite when he's in this situation. And this sort of brings me to the second realization or kind of lesson here, that love, and it's a second and third lesson here, that love is really a two-way street. Love cannot be forced. If we look at the nature of love, it is expressed freely between two individuals. And even Krishna and Krishna's associates they're masters of love, right? And they also fall within these principles of loving, association, and relationship. And we can see here that Krishna also really understands our heart. He understands what we need. Um, in the case of Arjuna and Subhadra, Krishna actually understands. I was thinking of Krishna and his pastimes, of Rukmini and his first wife, Queen Rukmini, and how he saves her because she's actually supposed to be married to Shishupal, who is very envious of Krishna because it's arranged by her brother, Rukmi. And I think all of us know that story, and how she actually doesn't love Shishupal, but this wedding is being arranged and all these things are happening behind the scenes. And she actually writes a letter to Krishna explaining her love for him and for her desire for him to save her. And Krishna comes, and we know the whole story of how he takes her and how, in such an epic fashion, he is able to reciprocate with her desire. And so actually Krishna understands the heart. He understood the heart of Subhadra, his sister, and also his best friend and family member, Arjuna, as well. So how incredible is this that Krishna can actually really understand the heart of every soul without even ever speaking to them. He already knows. And so we see a similar situation here where actually Subhadra was um, planned to be married to Duryodhana, the Kaurava prince. And Balaram was very much in favor of this union. Meanwhile, when Krishna actually asks Subhadra, and it's explained in the Mahabharata that he actually asked her that, what do you think of this alliance with Duryodhana and marrying him? And she was kind of very disdainful when she heard his name. And she said, I don't want to really marry that arrogant, Kaurava prince. Um, but at the same time, she felt like there was this arrangement already being made. And then when he mentioned Arjuna's name, what do you think about Arjuna? And her heart, her face, her whole body lit up, right, with enthusiasm. And she was thinking of the Pandava hero and very much interested in getting to, and having that alliance and connecting with him in that way. And so when we think of this, sometimes, and I thought it was a really interesting meditation, but we look at Shishupal and Duryodhana, and we look at Arjuna, and we compare the two, right? There's a vast difference in the personality of these characters, particularly of Arjuna, and then on Shishupal and Duryodhana on kind of one side, right? Very much, very similar in many ways. We look at Duryodhana and Shishupal, there's actually not a love that's coming from other people to want to marry them, right, in this case. And what they're doing is they're allowing their position, their lineage, their power, and their family situation to kind of create these alliances, right? We look at Arjuna, and Arjuna is allowing, and he has, of course, he has the lineage and he has the family and all those things as well. But when you look at Arjuna, we look at his personal qualities, we look at his behaviors, his dharmic reputation. All of those are actually creating opportunities for him. So we can see um, Subhadra is very much falling in love with those things about him. And so there's love is a two-way street. And we can kind of see in our life, right? And this is the question to kind of ask ourselves for this second point. In what ways do we force others to love us, right? Um, is it through, sometimes when we're feeling this void within, we focus on what I call the 4 Ps, right? We want people to love us through because of the prestige that we have, positions that we try to achieve, power we try to obtain, and possessions that we have, right? So we can kind of think of this, these four Ps are sort of replacements to love when we're not actually feeling that love within. But they actually don't fulfill the heart. We think they fulfill the heart, and especially in our material based consciousness, but they actually don't really fulfill the heart. And those are prestige, position, power, and possessions. In what ways do we force others to try to love us because of those things? I have, can't you see what an incredible job I have, or how well educated I am, how much money I have, or these possessions, this nice car that I have, and want to create a relationship with someone, or some affection or some friendship through those things, right? Sometimes we can get into this mindset of thinking that our accomplishments, can't you see all the things I've accomplished? How special am I? Love me, right? We want to kind of prove that and get that validation. Um, Versus we can actually let our personal qualities, our Vaishnav etiquette, our sadachar, all of those things melt the heart of others, right? Our service attitude, right? those also can melt the heart of others and create a loving friendship or relationship. And so in what ways do we force others to love us? And how can we transform that love into something that's more organic, healthy, and actually coming from our spiritual core versus the material consciousness can have? Because we can see that whenever there's force or there's this heavy expectation, this has been a good lesson for me in my life and also my relationships. And we can all meditate on this. So we're speaking kind of practically. And I think for those of you that have been in some of my classes, I like to kind of go in that direction, so that we can kind of meditate on these pastimes as it relates to our spiritual development. But I feel that whenever there's an expectation of or force in love, the heart kind of closes up, right? I think all of us can relate to this, um, that we can see that sometimes the heart closes up. We might kind of give due to obligation or duty, but sometimes we're not fully there, we're not fully present, we're not fully giving. Um, versus when there's no expectation, when there's such a beautiful, loving relationship that's established, we give our whole self, not being reserved in any way, shape, or form. And we want to give even more than that. As much as we can give, we want to give. And we can see that that relationship even with Srila Prabhupada and his disciples, and how much they've given to Srila Prabhupada of themselves, of their life. And it's because of how much they felt like he gave himself to them and to the entire world, right? Really, his whole energy, the wisdom that he had, the incredible lineage and knowledge, and um, the path of bhakti, this love that he gave. And so there's a reciprocation of that, of giving their whole heart. And that really brings me to the point that, like, as bhakti yogis, I was having this thought the other day, and it's not a very unique thought, but that at the end of the day, it's important that for us to know that we really have to focus on being in the school of love. We're not in the school of, asana yoga practices, which, those are great and helpful. We're not in the school of, jnana and having extremely deep philosophical, all and focusing on that side. And that's great. Again, those are important to help our bhakti. And that is important to kind of give us the foundation, right? A healthy body, a healthy mind, all of those things, and then connecting with spiritual wisdom. But at the end of the day, um, are we developing our capacity to love Krishna, to love his creation, all the other souls, our brothers and sisters? That's what it's all about. And that's what Krishna is showing us in these pastimes, in these stories. Because as bhakti yogis, we're really in the school of love. And then last point that I want to make here before I just open it up as well is that love is all consuming. We can see Arjuna in this story, in this passage, he's so enamored and so enthusiastic and so touched by Subhadra's affection and devotion and all of that he can't even focus. Right? He can't even focus while he's eating, and all he's thinking about is how do I approach her and how can I marry her, right? And how can I make her mine? And this is not just some, obviously we can, we see some of this in material love and this love in this world, but this is Krishna's sister and this is Krishna's best friend, Arjuna. So this is not an ordinary situation in the slightest. Um, and so it's not like just like the romantic love of this world, but we can see some of those symptoms because those are there in the spiritual context as well. So why can't they be there in the material context, of course? Um, but love is all consuming. He cannot focus, and really love is the highest meditation, right? When we're all consumed with the object of our love, that is an incredible place of samadhi. I was just thinking of the different limbs of Ashtanga yoga, and the last three being dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. Dharana meaning concentration, dhyana meaning meditation, and then samadhi, which is a deep absorption and trance. And how, there's those limbs, but when we look at it from the bhakti yoga lens, we can be even deeper in samadhi when we're deeply focused on the object of our love. And so when we see how Arjuna's how much of us in the samadhi, in a trance he is here, where he can't even focus on where, the hospitality of Lord Balaram. And Lord Balaram is, not able to understand who this person is, Arjuna. Um, we can see, and the question to sort of ask ourselves here is how present are we during our interactions with Krishna? How distracted are we? Right? Are we in samadhi? Are we um, kind of building that muscle to get into samadhi? Sometimes we come into the deity, to the deity's room and the temple room and or to kirtan or to some event or whatever the case might be, and Rath Yatra or whatever the case might be, and we come and we're sort of there, but we're sort of not there, right? And we're always thinking about something else, some other situation that's going on, personal, job, family, relationship, whatever the case might be. And of course, there's going to be always distractions in the material world, but how present are we in our interactions with the devotees and with the Lord? And I was thinking that, for me, even being in Kirtan, which I love so much, realizing that sometimes I'm not so present actually in Kirtan. I'm not very much in any of these stages of dharana, dhyana, or samadhi. And it's something that I want to be more conscious about, being more present, being more fixed, letting that wave of love really wash over me. Because if I'm there, but physically, but I'm not feeling that emotion, or not working on cultivating that emotion or being present to that emotion, then I'm losing out on that opportunity to connect with Krishna. So we can see that love is all consuming. Arjuna in this situation can't focus, but we can also meditate on what is our focus like? Are we achieving the focus that we want? Are we being as present as we want in our interactions with Krishna and the devotees? And if we're honest, I think, at least I can speak for myself, that's not always the case and something that we need to work on. And we be conscious about, because if we're not conscious of it, we can immediately kind of just end up in a bad habit where we're going through the motions without the emotion. And we want to avoid that. So I want to end off here. It's a wonderful pastime. We can see, so kind of leaving off where we are here, just to wrap up, we can kind of see that Krishna is a co-conspirator with Arjuna. Arjuna's on this year-long exile, comes back. He comes to Dwarka, and Krishna immediately is co-conspiring with him around, Subhadra, his sister, and knowing that Subhadra already has so much affection and a desire to marry Arjuna, and Arjuna has a desire to marry Subhadra, but there's a situation where Balaram wants her to marry Duryodhana. Krishna is always coming up with the craziest, most beautiful plans. And we can see here how he's a co-conspirator, meditating on how he can be that in our life. And we can show that through our desire and having an intense desire. And then we can see how he's really understands the heart, where love is a two-way street, and that Subhadra didn't have that affection for Duryodhana. And through Arjuna being a sannyasi and being served in Balaram's palace by Subhadra, there's this relationship that's starting to develop, this affection that's becoming clear between the two of them, and that's really consuming, all consuming to both of them. And we can apply that in our life as well, around how are we allowing ourselves to be consumed in bhakti yoga, in this love that we can be present toward. And I won't finish the story because we still have a couple more verses, and we'll continue to see how Krishna is there as a co-conspirator in Arjuna's life and in this pastime at every single step, which is an incredibly special relationship. So I want to end off there and open up for any questions, comments, thoughts, and all of that. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for listening and being here. Haribol. Okay. We have a question. Yes, please. Mitravinda, Devidasi. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Or comment.
Hi, Krishna. Thank you so
Evolve.
much for being here. It's wonderful to see you.
Good to see you.
I really appreciate you and your adorably beautiful and wonderful wife. I want to thank you for being modest about the kirtan thing. I don't believe you one bit. I've been in kirtans with you for many, many years. You're complete. Well, actually, no, I take it back. You're present and you're not present. You're present because you are sharing in a way that you have to be present by playing the Krishna's instruments of bhakti, but you're not present because I've seen you. You actually leave the room in a sense. So you are present and not present in the best ways for both. Um, you spoke on love. I really appreciate your understanding of the bhakti practice. Uh, Too often, it seems to lean more towards, I'm so intelligent. I've read so much. I've absorbed so much. I've memorized so much. And none of that is important in the process, actually. A person who is illiterate can attain to highest heights in bhakti. So, more of that information, I believe personally, helps people to want to come to the process, stay in the process, and help others do the same. My Guru Maharaj Bhakti Tirtha Swami was criticized and ridiculed and jokingly known as the love guru because he had this understanding of the process and how it works in the best way, leaving aside personality things or rising above personality things, material issues, etc.
Yeah.
But would you please discuss, for the benefit of all, what is love, as the song goes? What is love? What is it?
Mm. Well, please, I would love to hear from you and your realizations from Maharaj as well and what you've understood. Please, if you want to share, a minute on that as well. Love to hear from you.
Okay, well, you put me on the spot. Yeah, okay, all right. So for my Gumaraj, I will attempt to speak from what he has shared. Um, I'm grateful to be a mother. I do not know what love is in an overall sense because I'm still trying to experience and learn it and practice it. I'm thankful for this path of bhakti very greatly, and for my children who gave me a certain perspective that I never could have imagined existed in aspiring to love. But Bhakti Tirtha Swami learned, studied, exemplified this aspect of love as caring, having time, seeing the need, and exhibiting compassion for one another. Because after all, in this age of Kali Yuga, we have Lord Chaitanya, his mercy, his example, as a way of understanding love by action.
Mhm.
And I feel like too often we don't hear these things or read them or really take the time to look at what Lord Chaitanya is doing. He's crying, he's weeping, he's he's his hand is on his heart. Uh, he even goes as far as to uh, uh, become violent potentially because someone that he loves has been injured or is having an attack from someone. Um, so love is quite intricate. There are so many ways that we can exhibit love, uh, but being present, as in when we're chanting the Maha Mantra, we're calling on the names of Radha and Krishna. And in doing so, we are connecting with them. And they're imploring us to understand this love and to share it with each other and the world by service. Hare
Yeah,
Krishna.
beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I love that. And actually, it's so beautiful you mentioned His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Maharaj because unfortunately, I didn't get to spend much time with him. He passed away when I was, I think, about 14 years old. But I got to be in Gita Nagari for some of those in those last 1 or 2 years. Went a couple times with my family. So just really grateful for that. But actually, when I use the word school of love, it comes from one of the bookmarks that I had from that time that I still use. Maharaj had these bookmarks. You might remember, Prabhu, just and they had these different kind of rules of love, and I use it for my books to this day. And one of those is the kind of I think it's the 10 rules in the school of love, and I really always admired how Maharaj brought it back to what's most important in Bhakti Yoga. So I just wanted to say that, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think that the philosophy and all of that is meant to aid us in the development of that emotional experience and of that spiritual experience of feeling bhakti, which is love and devotion. And it's only as useful as it's doing that. Sometimes we can get, and I've been pretty vocal about it even in some of the Bhagavatam classes, but I think sometimes in our communities and for all of us, we can kind of like get a little bit too much focused on especially for kind of more intellectually like, um, oriented people where we can get into all the Shastra and all of these verses and different philosophical systems and explanations, and that's not really bad. But if we get too lost in that, where we lose um, affection for the devotees, an understanding of etiquette, um, having positive relationships with the devotees, with different people. Those are all important also factors when we're starting to criticize different people and starting to commit all sorts of offenses. That's a very, very dangerous place to be. And so both have to go hand in hand, but I completely agree that the philosophy is meant to aid us. I and the Prabhu would always say that the philosophy is meant to aid us in more chanting and dancing. And if you're not doing the chanting and dancing part, then what's the use of the philosophy, right? Basically. Um,
Exactly. Thank you so much, Prabhu. I wanted to add, if I might,
yeah.
uh, there seems to be a
Just a
very high.
note, there might be darshan opening in the middle of this, so we'll
Okay,
pause
okay,
whenever that happens immediately
okay,
and do
sure.
that. And then we
Yeah,
can we can also resume after. So just yeah,
okay.
please.
There's
Yeah.
a very high mood of looking for or admiring corporate mentality or managers and this, that, and the other, and then and vibing people in these types of services and temples, uh, especially if they're new to Krishna consciousness, and having people manage devotees, managing a temple, managing this, that, and the other. But people shouldn't be managed. Chairs and buildings should be managed. People should be cared for, guided, inspired. So more of that, as a focus of the bhakti practice is essential, in my opinion. Thank you so much, Raikisha.
Yeah, I agree. And going back to your definition of love, I think it's so sweet and there's so many mysteries to that. And there's so much there that I think we would need a whole different forum for. But I love what you mentioned about care and compassion. I think that is the essence of it. And I think you can throw in the word empathy, you can throw in the word humility, um, care, compassion, all of those I think are all parts of that. And to your point, I think often projects can be prioritized over people, as Radhanath Swami says, and it's so important that we're really prioritizing people, the relationships around us, just as much and honestly way more than the projects. So it's an important part because then everything else will thrive when people really feel cared for. Any other comments?
Contact me on my page, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Very well. Thank you. Very well. Now, Naranji, are we ready for darshan in the temple room? Great to see everyone, by the way. Himangi Mataji, it's great to see you also on here. See a couple familiar faces.
My son Narayan is graduating tomorrow. I wanted to throw that also out there. He's graduating from high school. Little Narayan. He used to watch you
Oh,
play. Thank you so much. Hare
yeah, I
Krishna.
remember for sure. Congrats to you and to him, to the whole
Thank
family.
you. Thank
It's
you.
incredible. Great accomplishment.
Well, y- you know, looks like Ananda Bihari has left the call. I know yesterday he had to leave for work, and I know that the folks who are usually in the temple room are not there today. So I
Okay.
don't know, Bhakti Center, is there a host? Does anyone know if we have a camera for Darshan today?
The
We may not.
iPhone camera looks like it's showing, but it's just if you guys can double click on that, maybe.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
Yes.
Okay, fine.
Sorry, I didn't spotlight.
No worries, Hare Krishna.
Yeah, I can do that 1 second.
Is it muted? Is it finished?
All right, thank you all. We can end our Bhagavatam class there. And thank everyone just for their attention and participation. And on iPhone, you are still on video, and we can see you. Can end this call now. Very well.
Thank you, Anuj Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you,
Dhananjay Hari
Anuj
Prabhu,
Prabhu.
take it away.
Thank you. I'm so much. I got distracted. I'm here with Ram. I listened to your class. I really appreciate the points you made. Ram, did you hear what love is?
Oh my God.
They already
Thank you.
know.
Very,
They
very
already know.
practical class. Very practical. Thank you, Prabhu. So many takeaways. Any final instructions for us, Anuj Prabhu, on this Tuesday morning?
No instructions, but I would say let's all just be the best version of ourselves that we can for Shil Prabhupada.
The best version. Yeah, no envy, encouraging each other, path to prema. Thanks everyone who participated. We love you. We need you. Have a wonderful day. Come again tomorrow. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Anuj Prabhu ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki